News proud. You're watching Local 33 News at 10.
Good evening to you and welcome to NBC Local 33 News at 10. Welcome to your local election headquarters. It's election night, big night. I'm John Burns.
And I'm Dion Guillory, and we have been watching these numbers change throughout the night, the last 2 hours and some change, and we have a lot to get to.
We're going to start with the statewide election for governor. We're going to show you how those numbers have broken down. Governor John Bel Edwards, we've called this one. He's going to be in a runoff with the Baton Rouge businessman Eddie Rispone.
You can see that number there. Governor Edwards with 46% of the vote there. Eddie Rispone with 27%. All right, let's move on to the next race here. This is the lieutenant governor's race. It's one we called pretty early in the evening. Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser going to continue to keep his job here as lieutenant governor there. We called this race very early in the evening.
Now we want to take a look at the numbers for the Secretary of State's election here. You see incumbent Republican Kyle Ardoin with 41% of the vote. Gwen Collins Greenup with 33% of the vote, and it looks like those two will be in a runoff at this point. And
they were meeting again because they met in a runoff last year in that special election for this position. So we'll see how that plays out for the runoff there. Attorney General, another one of the races that we called early this evening. Jeff Landry keeping his job there with 87% of the vote.
And then on to the treasurer's race, those numbers here. You see State Treasurer John Schroeder there with, let's see, what is that? 60% of the vote, and with Derek Edwards falling behind there with 34%, Teresa Kenny ending up with 5% of the vote.
Yes, let's go on to the next race here that we've been looking at all night. Another one we called early on for Ag Commissioner, incumbent Mike Strain keeping his job here as well. This is when we called. You see that golden check. I like to call it the golden check there. It's 57% of the vote there for Mike Strain.
Yeah, you've been working those numbers all night. I love the golden check. All right, the Insurance Commissioner Jim Donelon, he ended up with 54% of the vote this evening, winning outright there against Tim Temple with 46% of the vote in that one.
Yeah, and this was one of the races that we've seen that was pretty close throughout the evening, so we'll see what happens there.
That one was
this
close.
One, another one that's close, and another one we called within the last hour, the incorporation of St. George. People who live in what would be St. George were the only ones who could vote yes or no for this, and the majority of the people there saying yes.
All right, we've got some folks who have been analyzing the numbers all evening, calling those races that we've told you that we called early on. Joining us right now, we send things over to Fred Childers and John Cuvion with more on what all this means and what happens next.
Yeah, John and Dion, we have been crunching these numbers all night, and just to process this out a little bit for you, the governor's race, which was the one that was most paid attention to, at least from this desk, John Cuvion, you were able to call that race as going into a runoff fairly early on in the night. As we saw those numbers come in, you were also able to call the race that the challenger, one of his Republican challengers, would be Eddie Rispone. The reason you were able to see that Governor Edwards was having some trouble early on in the night is because some of these parishes that he did well back in 2015, he wasn't doing so well this time around. In fact, just a few moments ago, you were surprised to see the results in Tangipahoa Parish. This is a parish that he should have had, and it's because of where he's from. What did he end up with?
So quite simply, the Tangipahoa Parish has been home to the Edwards for generation. You have Edwardses who are judges, sheriffs, and so forth. And of course, John Bel practiced law there and was state representative. When I looked at the data that has come in, it looks like 49% of the vote in Tangipahoa Parish went for the Republican candidates and 48% went for Governor Edwards. If you are an incumbent governor and that is your home parish, that's not good numbers, particularly since he received 60% of the vote in Tangipahoa Parish in 2015 against David Vitter. That drop in support was emblematic of the problems that Governor Edwards had across the state once you got outside the Baton Rouge and New Orleans metropolitan areas, was double-digit drops in support. That was a consolidation of the Republican vote that hurt Governor Edwards.
And just to be clear, obviously he's in the lead, so he's celebrating tonight for sure to be the guy to beat.
Yes.
However, early on in the evening, you saw some of these parishes not looking too good. I think one of the first one was Ascension or Calcasieu.
Lake Charles.
Yeah. So.
And the interesting thing about that, I mean, first about Lake Charles, then about the statewide numbers. Lake Charles is an area, of course, Calcasieu is the parish, where there's been a lot of economic expansion. So logically, that parish, where Governor Edwards did really strongly in 2015, should have been receptive to his optimistic message, talking about how he's turned the state around, yet he didn't, yet he lost it.
And speaking of that, the man who was trying to go into a runoff with him, Mr. Abraham, I believe he is coming to the podium now to speak. Let's listen into what he has to say.
But this has even brought us closer together, because we've been in the trenches together. We fought the wars just like you have. And again, these wonderful grandchildren behind me, they will hopefully continue the march forward and be involved not only politically, socially, culturally, but in their community. So this is what we want to leave for them, is that lesson of service. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I've called Eddie, I've given him my congratulations, and I have endorsed him, because we still have one task left, and that's to beat John Bel Edwards. I've said it before, and I'll say it over and over again. The reason Diane and I jumped in this race to begin with is we simply did not like where we were as a state, dead last in everything. The only way to fix that is to put somebody else in that position. So we're going to march forward. November 16th, we're going to beat it from a Republican standpoint, and hopefully we move in a direction that we all know we can be. I'm looking out among the crowd. You're all my friends. You're all my supporters. Again, just a big thanks. We will continue to serve you in Congress, and we will continue to march forward and do what we know is right and righteous. And again, we'll be at church in the morning with our good pastor and First Lady over there, and I would encourage all of you to do the same. So thank you for coming out. Good night. God bless you. Thank you.
Abraham giving his concession speech there, and also in the midst of that, endorsing Eddie Rispone, his Republican opponent.
Yeah, very gracious tonight. So he's looking for the Republican base to come together in that runoff. So we will see what the electorate does with that. On that note, as we head to break, we want to let you know that we're going to be checking in with Governor John Bel Edwards' camp tonight, as well as Eddie Rispone, who is again going to be in this runoff with our governor. But before we head out, we want to show you some of the numbers from some other races that you may be interested in tonight.
Welcome back on this election night. Louisiana decides 2019. Lots of numbers tonight.
Yep, and Louisiana has decided there will be a runoff for governor between incumbent Governor John Bel Edwards and Baton Rouge businessman Eddie Rispone.
Yeah.
We're going to send things out to our own Kellyanne Biley tonight, who has been at that watch party. It's been a little quiet out there. I know, Kelly, the family has been sequestered, you said, for about the last hour, I assume now. Are they out now?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Well, I tell you, we have to just be moments away from Mr. Rispone making his way into the room. And I have to also say that the energy here tonight is electric, and it is certainly magnified as we get closer to the end of that LSU-Florida game. It looks like there's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left there. But people have really gotten up on their feet now. They're shaking hands. They're hugging one another. So in this room tonight, at least, it seems like it's going to be a double win. Official watch party for Rispone, and then, of course, for the LSU Tigers. I've seen the family start to make their way in here. They're partaking in a few cocktails as well, but it's certainly all smiles on the faces of everyone. I'm also getting a cue right now that it looks like Mr. Rispone might be making his way in here momentarily. So the communications director is communicating with people behind me. So we want to make sure that we bring you those details. And it looks like they're going to be bringing people down in front of the stage now. So we will have the announcement coming from him momentarily. We'll make sure to give you that live speech as soon as he gets here. So make sure to stick with NBC Local 33 right here on NBC 10. For Kellyanne Biley, LaBerge Casino here in East Baton Rouge.
Kellyanne Biley there for you. And this is how live TV works, because, you know, they have their plan of action, and we've just got to work around that. And so we're expecting to hear from Eddie Rispone in the next couple of minutes.
Right. I imagine that the family has been sequestered. Maybe they saw that concession speech from Congressman Ralph Abraham. Our own Harrison Golden is out with the Edwards camp tonight, heading into that runoff. Harrison, what's happening out there?
All right, John, getting a little bit louder for a few reasons. Firstly, of course, because of LSU football, that game of the night, of course, the big showcase. And in many ways, really, the game of football scheduling itself around, or I should say the other way around, the candidates are speaking around this football game. So as we just heard from Congressman Ralph Abraham, his concession speech, we're supposed to be hearing a little bit later, shortly. All right, something exciting just happened football-wise. We can't show it to you because of copyright reasons, but that's another story. In the meantime, though, like I said, getting a little bit louder here as we get more details on those numbers coming in. Governor Edwards set to speak after Mr. Rispone does, essentially giving courtesy to the Republican challenger here at the moment, but we're not sure exactly when that would be. But when that comes, then the governor will be speaking afterwards. That's all we know at this point. But what we do know right now, the Governor Edwards team was confident that they could pass this off and win this without a runoff tonight. But that was really, in many ways, just a hope. Of course, by no means is this a sad occasion here at the Edwards camp tonight. Very excited that there is going to be a runoff, and they're very confident in their hopes for November the 16th with now Mr. Rispone as projected. But in the meantime, again, we're just expecting the governor to be speaking after his now runoff challenger, Eddie Rispone, does. And once we find that out, of course, we'll bring that to you guys. But in the meantime, for your local election headquarters, we're here at Team Edwards camp tonight. I'm Harrison Golden reporting. Guys.
All right, Harrison, they're talking about longtime hopes, and the city of St. George, or what was the proposed city of St. George, has been a longtime hope of a lot of people for a long time. And tonight, the people who live within those proposed city limits have said yes.
Yes, they've said yes, and there's a lot of excitement where they are. That's where Jonah Gilmore is tonight. And Jonah, a lot of people there very excited about the results of tonight's election.
Yeah, they were definitely excited when you guys called the race. The room burst into excitement, a loud clap, and everyone just yelling and cheering. Looking at the numbers on the screen right now, it's pretty calm. Everybody has pretty much left, but there are a few people that are still lingering around. It was a close race, but in the end, the voters said yes to the city of St. George. They did, and people here tonight said the first phase is finally over. As you guys know, it's been a bumpy ride with a big push for the area to break away from the city of Baton Rouge. A lot of time, money, and effort went into this. this. People in the area were the only ones allowed to vote on this in corporation, and they said yes. Those things, some things their supporters really wanted to see were new school district tax dollars, and pointing out the success of the city of Central. We've been hearing from people of St. George arguing millions of tax dollars collected each year that went to the city of Baton Rouge that did not go to the St. George area. Now, those in support of St. George continue to point the success of the city of Central and their incorporation, saying that's exactly what they wanted, and they finally got it. Now they said it's time to sit down with Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome and have a smooth transition to figure out phase 2, which is the school districts. Well, of course, we'll have all of that as we move forward with the city of St. George. But right now, the city of St. George is a go. The voters voted yes. Reporting live from City Cafe, Jonah Gilmore, your local election headquarters.
All right, you can see a lot of people there were really all into the football game, which a lot of people are as well. And here we go. We are looking at, on the other side of the screen, this is from the Risponi camp, and we are expected to hear from him in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, we're being told that his family has been coming in. Obviously, you see, we've been watching this. We've been checking in with them much of the evening, and we've been saying it's kind of dead. Everybody's been watching the football game. But now that Congressman Ralph Abraham has, in fact, conceded the runoff and thrown his support behind Eddie Risponi in this governor's race, the excitement is there now.
Yeah, a lot of excitement there. And, you know, leading up to this, the vice president came to the state. He campaigned last weekend for both Republican challengers for Governor John Bel Edwards. Just yesterday, the president was in our state. He was in Lake Charles asking voters to choose one of the two Republican candidates. They never really endorsed one candidate, but we know what's going to happen next.
Right, but all along in this campaign, Eddie Risponi has been the one who has seriously aligned himself with the president, and you know, apparently the voters heard that.
Yes, he also aligned, not only did he align himself with the president, but he also aligned himself with a reality TV star, one of the guys from
Right,
Dynasty.
right. Yeah, Willie. Yeah,
Yes.
he got a couple of commercials. I just saw one of them today, actually.
Yeah.
Obviously very effective because, you know, we talk about Congressman Ralph Abraham representing North Louisiana. You think he would have a stronghold up there, but with that support from the Robertson family, perhaps
from that,
Eddie Risponi got some big support in the northern part of the state.
Yeah, and the thing that Eddie Risponi, he sold himself on to voters was that he was not a career politician, that he was a businessman, and like you mentioned, aligning himself with President Donald Trump, because when he was running for president, he was not the typical politician. He was a businessman. So that kind of narrative is what has been playing out here. And so we see that Eddie Risponi is going to go into the runoff with incumbent Governor John Bel Edwards.
Yeah, and again, we're seeing the family in the shot here. You see them getting ready on the stage.
Clapping and everything.
Yeah, not sure how long it's going to take for Mr. Risponi to take the stage himself, but we will be keeping an eye on it, and we will bring you out there whenever he does take the stage. Right now, we're going to give you a little bit more analysis, people who know a little bit more about how we got to this point in this race. We're going to send things over to Fred Childers and John Couvion.
That's right, John and Dion, we've been looking at some of the numbers. Some of the top stories, obviously, is the governor's race and then the commissioner of insurance. But you've noticed there's a trend happening within the state legislature, and there's a benchmark that if Republicans want to control the legislature in a very powerful way, they would have to land what's called the two-thirds majority, a supermajority. You believe they could be on their way to doing that. They've picked up some seats tonight?
Correct. They have picked up Eric LaFour's seat in central Louisiana, so that gives them a one-seat gain. They're on the cusp of picking up a Democratic-held seat in Shreveport. They have something like 49.9% of the vote. Yes, Senator Milkovich. If they win those two, that would put them at 27 Republicans, which would be a supermajority in the Senate. In the House, the Republicans have picked up 3 seats, one in Avoyelles Parish, one in Evangeline Parish, and one in Allen Parish. These are areas that have been Democratic for decades. I don't even think Republicans seriously contested these seats until 2007. They're sliding steadily away from the Democrats. They're also forcing an independent into a runoff up in the Felicianas. So the Republicans are now knocking on the door of a two-thirds majority in the House as well.
You're seeing a bigger portion of Republicans turning out in the electorate this cycle, correct?
I did, yes. The thing that was most interesting to me was not just what I mentioned about Governor Edwards' weakness in his home parish of Tangipahoa, but if you add the Risponi and Abraham vote together, as well as Patrick Livewire Landry, that is 51 to 52% of the vote, whereas Governor Edwards just has the 1% of the vote that fellow Democrat Omar Dantzler got. So you're talking about a 52-47 Republican majority in the governor's race, and by the way, that's after the expectation was falsely, in my opinion, set by the Edwards people that they were going to win without a runoff. So the problem by setting the bar that high is that now makes Governor Edwards, whether deserving or not, look like a weakling going into the runoff.
And it's tough even for an incumbent governor if he goes into a runoff. It's tough to win against a strong Republican. We know that a lot of support is going to be coming to Eddie Risponi in the coming days to win that seat back for the Republicans.
Correct. The first task, of course, is he does have to get the enthusiastic endorsement of Ralph Abraham, which I suspect that the Republicans have learned their lessons from 2015 and will not allow Ralph Abraham to go off the proverbial reservation. But the thing is, Eddie Risponi is going to have more than adequate resources to compete. I also fully expect Democratic money to be coming into Louisiana over the next 4 or 5 weeks. But Governor Edwards does start off with a disadvantage because he had falsely set the expectation, like Senator Mary Landrieu did in 2014, of winning without a runoff. The problem is if you don't meet that high bar, you instantly look like a weakling, whether deserved or not.
Well, it was interesting to see Abraham talk about the runoff election, one that he will now he knows he will not be a part of, and he will not be challenging Governor Edwards. It was interesting to see him somewhat throw his support behind Eddie Risponi, especially considering some of the negative ads, the political ads that Risponi launched against Abraham. Do you think that support will continue down the road?
I do, but I think it would be crucial for Eddie Risponi to have a good, I guess, peace summit, for lack of a better term, with Abraham as soon as possible, definitely within the next couple days, because what you don't want to have is the unenthusiastic support of Congressman Abraham going into the runoff, because you do need Congressman Abraham to generate a strong Northeast Louisiana turnout, which is a problem the Republicans had back in 2002 when a Northeast Louisiana congressman named John Cooksey missed the runoff, and when he did not enthusiastically support the Republican nominee, I saw double-digit drops in support in those rural Northeast Louisiana parishes. So Congressman Abraham is a crucial part of that 51-52% Republican majority.
Right. It was all but assumed. We haven't done it yet, but you wanted to call the Commissioner of Insurance race. We have Jim Donnellan, the incumbent, at 54%, and Tim Temple at 46%. What's your call on that?
Jim Donnellan's going to win that race because what I've consistently seen from the early voting all the way into the parish voting is that Jim Donnellan has stayed constantly at 53 to 54% of the vote, which suggests to me that he's getting a broad coalition of support across the state, regardless of race, party, and so forth. So I'm comfortable with calling him the re-elected insurance commissioner as well.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, John. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Welcome back to your local election headquarters as Louisiana has decided tonight. Looks like our governor is going to be going into a runoff, Governor John Bel Edwards, with Baton Rouge businessman Eddie Rispone. And as you know, the president and vice president playing a kind of a large role in this race, particularly at the end here, throwing their support behind the Republicans in this race. And tonight we're hearing from the president.
Yeah, the president in the last 10 minutes tweeting out, the governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards, has done a poor job. Now he is in a runoff with the great Republican Eddie Rispone. Thank you, Louisiana. 66% down to 47% after I explained what a bad job the governor was doing. This is from the president. That's what he's tweeting in the last 10 minutes.
All right. So again, we've got folks out at the governor's party tonight. Oh, there we go. We have a statement from the mayor. We want to get to you. Actually, she is at the Edwards watch party tonight. We've got this statement coming in from her. Quote: "It is truly unfortunate that only a portion of our community was able to participate in a decision that will ultimately affect everyone." And that's the end of the quote from the mayor president, and also this from her on the City of St. George incorporation effort.
Yeah, she says the most important thing is we are still neighbors who will continue to work and live among each other. This will continue to be a diverse and inclusive community where we will grow and prosper. And we know that the mayor canvassed several neighborhoods in the last week and also held news conferences with people against the City of St. George being incorporated, and the people who live there say they want a new city.
Yeah, it was a big last push from the mayor. Some might say a little too little, a little too late, maybe. But again, those folks at that party tonight, again, the thousands who voted for this, a lot ahead of them when it comes to the City of St. George and what lies ahead.
Yeah, and this has been an effort that has been going on for 5 years, and those people there who wanted this to happen said they weren't going to give up. And there was a lot of back and forth between the two sides, and a lot of voters out there were confused about what would really happen if this were to happen, and what numbers could you believe, and those kinds of things. But the people who live in what will now be the City of St. George, they said they wanted the city, and so we see what's going to happen. And it's going to be a long process to get to that, but we see that the people wanted it.
It's going to be a long process, and we will be with the City of St. George and all of you, letting you know what will be happening and what will need to happen along the way, so everybody will know what's going on, because again, this is going to have to go to the legislature. As far as the school system goes, there's so much planning to go, and even a statewide vote would have to happen before the City of St. George school system could actually happen. So a lot ahead.
And that school system was the starting off point for the whole St. George incorporation effort to begin with 5 years ago. So, and we see where we are at this point.
All right, we'll be back.
All right, a lot of numbers coming through, and the biggest numbers a lot of people looking for, LSU winning 42-28. The breaking news just coming in.
Chomp. Chomp.
Yes.
Yes, I did it. You know, we've been
And
watching.
it's homecoming.
Yes. Oh gosh, it's so exciting. We've been watching all these watch parties tonight. We've been checking in with the different candidates, and it's kind of been a ghost town in many. It's except for the screams from the LSU game. So that is an exciting thing. A lot of people are very excited about what's happened with this race. We now know that there will be a runoff, and the man who will be in the runoff against Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards is Republican businessman Eddie Rispone.
And we are waiting to hear from both of the men who are going to go into this runoff. We will hear from them in the next 10 minutes at least. Hopefully not that long, but we are going to listen to them. But we want to break down these numbers, especially when it comes down to Republican voters. Let's send things over to Fred Childers and John Couvillon for that part of the story.
Yeah, Deanna, John Couvillon with JMC Analytics here has been crunching these numbers. He's been polling these races for us, and you're noticing a big turnout tonight from the Republicans.
Correct. So overall, what I've seen thus far is an estimated 43% voter turnout, and that is with 3 parishes that have still not reported their absentees. So I think it'll end up being 44% turnout compared to a 39% turnout 4 years ago. I'm also seeing, almost without exception, Republican successes up and down the ballot, not just in the statewide races, but in the legislative races as well.
Okay, so we have Eddie Rispone sitting with 27%, Ralph Abraham at 24%. What was interesting is we saw these two gentlemen jockeying back and forth throughout the night, each of them enjoying a second place. And I'm hearing that we're about to hear from Eddie Rispone. As Kellyanne Biley had mentioned earlier, we're just waiting for him to take the podium. So let's head out to Eddie Rispone and see what he has to say about being the man that Governor Edwards will now have to face in the runoff.
Midwife takes him in, picks him up, names him Armando Rispone. He's an orphan. 60 years later, his grandson's born. His name's Eddie Rispone. "60 years to the day. 70 years later, his grandson is on the doorstep of being the governor of Louisiana. Only in America. That's the American dream, folks. That's the American dream. Are y'all ready to see the next governor of Louisiana? Please join me in welcoming Eddie Rispone. Congratulations. Oh, is it a great night in Louisiana? LSU did something great tonight, too. All right. I would have been out here about 3 minutes sooner, but had this guy up in Washington, D.C. just called to congratulate us.
President Donald Trump is going to help us. He congratulated us. He's going to stay with Louisiana. He's going to make us great like the rest of the country, and he's going to support us. That's wonderful. Let's thank him. Let's go. Well, look, are y'all ready to shake up Louisiana and make it #1 in the South? Well, let me start by thanking my family. They have been so supportive, especially Linda. It's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask of 7 married, beautiful children and 24 perfect grandchildren. But I'm so blessed, and I have many other family members here that have been stepping up to help us as well. And of course, all of you, your supporters. We could not do it without you. Thank you, thank you. Give yourself an applause and a hand. We have a great team that's worked very hard. This, I'm not a politician. This is the first time I've ever ran for elected office, but we put together a devoted team that worked very hard, and congratulate them as well. Thank you. And of course, the Almighty God. That's why we're here. We're here to serve the Lord, to do what He asked us to do. We answered His prayers. We answered His requests. And with your prayers, we're going to win. This is just the first step. We're going to be the governor of Louisiana, but we're going to turn this state around. I'd also like to thank Congressman Ralph Abraham. He called me earlier, very graciously said he's behind us, he's going to support us. I had to tell him that he worked very, very hard, and Linda and I kept him in our prayers because the man flew himself all over this state working very hard because he wants to see the change as well. Please keep him in your prayers and thank him as well. Thank you, Congressman. It all boils down. If you want different results, you got to elect a different kind of governor. And what do we have? We started our company, Jerry and I started our company 30 years ago, and there was 3 of us in my living room. And you know what now? Today, we employ almost 4,000 families. We founded that company on treating others like we want to be treated, and treating everyone with integrity. That's why we're successful. We're going to do the same thing here. You can start with 3 and wind up with 4,000 families. You can turn this state around with the right team, the right attitude, and you can shake up this state and make it great again. Thank you. Let's go do it. Right. That's it. I love it. Look at this. Why is it important to have a job creator as your governor? We're the only state in the United States that's losing jobs. We have to do something different. And what do you do to get something different? You elect a different kind of governor. Let's say it. We have the highest auto insurance in the country. What do you have to do to change that? Elect a different kind of governor. Someone that's not beholden to trial lawyers. Someone that has the backbone to go after that. The notice is out there, folks. This is going to be a different state. We're going to go put the citizens first. And what are we going to do? We're going to reverse these tax hikes from John Bel Edwards. How do you do that? And we're going to stop the assault on our oil and gas jobs. We sent a notice out there. They're no longer in charge. Special interests not going to run our state any longer. We're going to do something different by electing a different kind of governor. Thank y'all. Y'all getting there. We're not going to be beholden to special interests. Why? Because we're going to put our children and grandchildren first, right? By electing a different kind of governor. We're getting there, folks. Career politicians, tax and spend career politicians are no longer in charge. All they want to do is grow government and spend your tax dollars, raise taxes. We're going to stop that as well. Why? Because we have a different kind of governor coming. Thank you. It's a clear choice. We've been saying this all along. We have a clear choice here. We have a conservative, an outsider, a business person, someone that has serious business skills, a job creator, someone that's not beholden to special interests, someone that has the backbone to go up against the special interest and the status quo. Or we have a liberal, tax and spend, career politician that happens to be a trial lawyer. It's a clear choice, folks. What do we want? We want, what do we have to do? Elect a different kind of governor. I love it. We're getting there. We're going to make a difference. We're not going to accept failure any longer. We are ranked last. We are ranked last in the country. We're going to wake up. Thank God for President Trump. He stepped up and said we can do something different by electing a different kind of president. We're going to do the same thing in Louisiana. We're not going to be last any longer. We're going to be first in this country, in the South for sure. We're going to have the best job creation. We're going to lead the South when it comes to jobs and opportunities. And we're going to be that way because we want our grandchildren, our children and grandchildren to stay here in Louisiana and be proud to call Louisiana home. God bless you. Thank you for being here. Let's go do it. This is the first phase of it. We're going to come back.
And the chants of Eddie Rispone, they were getting it.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people there excited, his supporters there, his family. You saw when he first came out how he took the time to greet everyone who was there on the stage waiting for him to come out.
He seemed a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, he's new
by
to
the
this.
emotion.
He's
Yeah,
not a politician. He hasn't done this before.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, hearing from him what he wants to do moving forward, thanking Ralph Abraham for calling him and giving him his support. And again, like he said, he had just gotten a phone call from the president himself saying, you know, we're going to move forward with this. So
yeah.
we will see what happens from here.
Yeah, definitely. Also, the governor, the current governor, incumbent governor, John Bel Edwards, started his speech this evening saying that he actually started with remarks and prayers for those who are affected by this morning's partial motel collapse in New Orleans, the Hard Rock Hotel. We mentioned that earlier in the evening, that hotel is under construction. Part of that building collapsed. One person dead, several people injured, and a couple of people who were still trapped in there. So he started his speech there with prayers for those people.
All right, we have a crew out actually on the scene with the governor. We will try to check back in with him, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. The big news of the night, besides the fact that the Tigers beat the Gators, is that we do have a runoff in the race for governor here in Louisiana. Incumbent John Bel Edwards will be in a runoff with Baton Rouge businessman Eddie Rispone. We have the numbers just to show you one last time tonight where it ended up. Congressman Ralph Abraham with 24% of the vote gave it a really good run for the money, but Eddie Rispone just ended up on top with that 27%, which puts him in the runoff with the governor, who ended up with 47%.
Yeah, and the governor just wrapping up his speech, Eddie Rispone, we brought you his speech live, and he was telling us about how the president called him and said that he has his support in this runoff. And so we will see what happens here as the runoff. That election day will be November 16th.
We also want to tell you about the city of St. George. Yes, voters there voted that it will be a city. Voted yes for incorporation. 54% of the voters in that proposed city now will be a city, saying yes to that. There's a long way to go. There are a lot of things they've got to go through to get this city set up and going, but it's a go. It's going to happen, and they've worked this hard to get to this point. They'll get through everything they have to get there.
Yeah, 5-year period to get to this point. All right, let's move on to the next race that we want to show you. Lieutenant Governor, this is one of the races that we called very early this evening. Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser keeping his job in this position at 68% of the vote. Billy Nungesser continuing to be Lieutenant Governor of Louisiana.
As for the Secretary of State's position, that is going to go to a runoff between, interestingly enough, the two candidates who were in the runoff this time when they did this last time. 41% of the vote went to Kyle Ardoin, who at this point was the incumbent, and then Gwen Collins Greenup, who I think maybe surprised a lot of people by getting into that runoff the last time around. But our analyst John Cuvey on tonight saying that the Kennedy name may have diluted some voters, or maybe pulled some voters from Ardoin's support base, because that Republican support base. So now we end up with this runoff.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Attorney General's race. It's another one that we called pretty early this evening. Jeff Landry keeping his job as Attorney General with 66% of the vote. You can see that golden check, I like to call it there, calling that race right there.
And finally, the race for treasurer tonight. Here's how it ended up. John Schroeder with 60% of the vote, followed by Derek Edwards, 35%, and then Teresa Kenny with a showing of 5% in today's election.
And then, of course, you know, there's so many races here that a lot of voting that happened in here, and there are a lot of numbers as well. You can find them all on our free BR Proud app. Just download it. It's free in the App Store and on Google Play. You can have the numbers and breaking news. Sign up for alerts. You can have them right there in the palm of your hands. It's free. You don't have to pay $1 or anything for it. You can have it wherever you go.
Yep, you'll find all the numbers, including those races for sheriff. East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff Sid Gautreaux will continue to be our sheriff. That's just one of the several sheriff's races in and around our area that you can check and find out what's happened with those.
Yes, definitely. Also, those constitutions. There were 4 constitutions, amendments that we voted on as well. You can find out the results for those as well. So that wraps us up for tonight.
Right, and again, we had folks out at the governor's watch party tonight. We will have more on reaction from the candidates tomorrow on NBC Local 33 News on Sunday. I got that. I'm thinking, what day of the week is it?
It's been a long night. I know it's been a long night for you with all this football and election stuff. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.